Okay. Well, trying lots of stuff. Wait, nothing. Yes. Turtle tone. Yes. Okay. So I don't know whether it's these or this. And then there was no sound. Okay, so I can only go this far away, I think, or it's this mic. I don't know. Right, good morning. Thank you for hanging out this morning. It's a hot and sticky day, as you can probably see. So who's here? Paco, Turtle Tone, Toki, Garnage, and Bird's Fabulous. Well, welcome, guys. Better late than never on the sound part. Sorry about that. I don't know why. I always seem to have tech problems with whatever tech I'm using. I actually bought some new tech to use and it let me down. Okay, so I have been away for a little bit. So I'm just going to play a little bit to kind of, well, I'm pretty sticky because it's sweaty, but... All right. Okay, so I have been away for a while. I haven't done a live stream since late October. And the reason is I moved. And the other reason is that the internet service provider just got it wrong about 3 times in a row. So I said, hey, I'm moving. Can you stop this internet service at this point and start it over at this new address? And they're like, yeah, sure, we can do that. And so they say, oh, we'll stop the service at this address on this day. And then we'll start it on this other day, a few days later. Now, I was thinking that's all sorted. But as you know, when you deal with service people, it's never really what they say it's going to be. So they cut us off one day early from the previous address, and then, well, they didn't connect to us at the new address. And we didn't know that until they, reached that kind of 5-day point where they said we should be connected. And then you phone them up and you say, hey, we should be connected by now. And they're like, no, we've got no record of you requesting a transfer. And you're like, what? And they said, oh, yeah, well, we can do it for you today. It's like, well, you're already working on it. No, I can't see anything in our notes here about you needing internet. Okay, can you start it today? Oh, yeah, we can do it today. It'll be 5 days. We know because you told us that. And so we wait another 5 days and nothing happens. And then we're phoning up saying, hey, some guy's supposed to be coming out to connect us today. Oh, are you needing internet? There's nothing here in our notes that's saying you request. What? Listen, we've spent like 2 hours on the phone to you and we've called you 2 or 3 times now. And now you're saying you've got no record? Got no record. No record of a request. So then we got rather cross. We were like, you guys suck at this. This is your only job, connecting people and disconnecting people, because the internet works because you have the hardware, right? So all you do is like turn it off over here and turn it on there. Why, if that's the only job, why do you suck at it? And it doesn't help that it's a call center in India. And obviously we're here in New Zealand, and New Zealand place names can be very tricky for the native English speaker, because a lot of them are native Maori place names, like Whangaparoa. Okay, so we live near Whangaparoa, and you spell Whangaparoa Whangaparaoa. Okay, so you've got that, as well as the difficulty with heavy Indian accents and trying to communicate with those people in the call center, and then having difficulty with their spellings. It's just a recipe for a huge cluster. And in the end, we went, you know what, screw you guys, we're going to go with somebody else, because you can't even get this right. So we went with somebody else, and you phone somebody else up, and they're like, yeah, sure, we could get you connected in 3 days. Welcome to this new service. And you're like, awesome. And then 3 days later, guess what happens? No, we said we connect you in 5 to 7 days or something. And long story short, then they tried to connect us, and they said, you've already got a connection. We were like, how? Because it's a place that's never had internet before. How's their new connection? Oh, on this day, it looks like this service provider, naming the previous service provider that we just left, on this day, it looks like this service provider connected you. We were like, what? They actually got around to doing it? And it says, yes, so you're already connected, so we can't connect you again. And it went on and on and on like this. So we had to disconnect from this service provider that we thought we cancelled it. Well, we requested we cancel the account. And well, then we eventually got connected. But it's been, the date today is what? We're early December. It's the 8th of December, and we finished up our internet service on the 24th of October. So it's been a big saga, guys. Does anyone have an awesome internet service provider that treats them like royalty? Turtle Tone. It's obvious. Tell them the opposite of what you want done. Man, that is genius. That is so cool. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but I'm definitely doing that next time. Now you say it, I've just had like a really zen, enlightened moment. Like that's it. That's what you do. But if anyone has had a beautiful experience, because you only hear about the bad stuff, I'd also like to hear about your amazing, beautiful, flawless experiences with internet service providers, to restore my faith that they are just not taking your money and not doing anything. Okay, so what else has been happening in that time? I've been working on a new course. I'm working on 2 new courses, actually. I'm working on one that some of you guys who might have seen previous live streams might know about, which is called Scales to Phrases. Scales to Phrases is one that's, I think, really needed because of the amount of people who come to me both online and in person and say, hey, I can't really solo very well, but I know the 5 pentatonic shapes. And I thought that was it. I thought, I kind of saw this thing, like learn the 5 pentatonic shapes and you'll be able to learn to solo. But I now know the 5 pentatonic shapes, but I still can't solo. What's wrong with me? So I'm working on that course to give the pathway between, okay, so you know these shapes, but what you really need to work on and develop is all this other stuff, your phrasing, your timing, your creation of things on the fly, and how you go about doing that, and then how you go about developing the things you create on the fly. Because a lot of people have this thing where they learn scales, but they just sound like they're playing scales, there going, well, it doesn't really sound like the solos that I like to listen to. What's the missing link? So there's that course. I'm also working on a course with a great guy called Mark Zabel, who's another YouTube teacher, awesome teacher, loads more skills than myself. And we decided to do a kind of rock guitar 1970s compilation, like pick some songs from 1970, like the best ones, and we'll be teaching those in a I don't know how many we're doing right now. It's 6 to 10, I know, but like just in one block, instead of you having to cherry pick all different things from the internet and find like the backing track and the actual tutorial and then some tab and all of that. We're just gonna teach it all and put it all in one place. So that's what I've been working on. That's going pretty good in the run up to Christmas. I've also been practicing a couple of things. We're all on a journey of learning. It'd be good to know where you guys are at. But I don't consider myself a guitarist who is done with learning. There's a ton of stuff I don't know. There's a ton of stuff I can't do. And so I'm working on those kind of things, working on my timing. I went to a great workshop with the famous and most awesome and very humble Anthony Wellington. I don't know if you know Anthony Wellington, but if you don't know him, you should Google him, because he works with Victor Wooten, another incredible bass player, and he came to my town and he did a workshop, like a 2-hour workshop, and it was awesome. It was incredible. And some of the things he discussed, and he's very much focused on theory, but in a way that I've never really seen anybody deal with theory before. And that is, he simplifies it so much. He uses, common imagery and things that people can really relate to, rather than the language of music theory. Lots of examples and lots of things where he's just kind of looked at this part of theory and this part of theory and gone, you know what, I stared at this for long enough, and then I saw there was a pattern, and then I found a shortcut, and then out of these 210 diatonic chords, turns out you don't need to know any more than 63 of them, because their function is this. And so I was like, mind blown, and it was exceptional. And I got a photo, and I was the only guitar player there. Everybody else was, bassy dudes. There was one drummer there, but I'm always up from learning from anybody, right? Anybody who's better than me, whatever instrument they play, I'm happy to listen to their insights, because that's how we learn, right? So, what gear you guys rocking? Turtle Tone. What guitar have you got? Paco. What guitar you got, and what stuff are you into? I'm waiting for my regular dude Vapo to turn up. I think it's quite early in Germany, but he usually joins us. Turtle Tone, you build your own. That's freaking awesome, man. You building acoustics or electrics? Walt, nice to meet you, Walt. I'm Phil. Yeah, we did this thing with Anthony Wellington, and I think you can find it online. It's called the Yardstick of Time. And it's so simple, but it's so hard. And I think that's what he said. He says, this is going to be the easiest thing and the hardest thing you've ever done. And I was intrigued by that. And all he does, he puts on a beat, like 100 BPM beat. And he draws this stuff out on the whiteboard, draws like a line on the whiteboard with the subdivisions. Okay, so you've got, lines for the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. And you're like, okay, here's the beat. And he puts like a line underneath the 1. He said, play the 1. So everybody's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, he's right. This is the easiest thing I've ever done. And then he moves his little mark, he rubs it out, moves it to the 2, and he's like, play the 2, and we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm thinking, okay, I know where he's going with the next thing. So he moves it to the 3, we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then we do the 4, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that is easy. That's like a fundamental playing on one of the quarter notes, and then he chops up to the 8th notes, and we're going like, he puts it, okay, now we're going to do the and after 1. So we're doing 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Walt says, I have a CNC and I build one-piece solid bodies. Nice, man, you must be really good with your hands. Got a CNC machine, do all that stuff. I got to say, when I was at school, I really sucked at woodwork. I couldn't, you know, if there was a kid who you were trying to make a truck, like with an axle and 4 wheels and a truck body. I was a kid who ended up with like a ball or a turtle, or I don't know, I didn't have an affinity with the wood. I was no good with the materials. Yeah, that's not good. I'm no good with that kind of thing. Anyway, so we were doing this thing. We're doing the and after 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then we moved it to the and after 2. We went through all of them. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I was like, well, yeah, that was okay. And then the big gotcha is we split it all into 16th notes. So now we're going 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a E and a 4E and a. So it's like, okay, we're going to play the E after 1. So we're like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. Now we're going to play the E after 2 and go 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. So this thing was moving all the time. The hardest ones for everyone were the E's and the U's. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So that kind of moving accent, or well, you just played one note at the time that beat landed. But that was quite challenging when it got to that, and then we started on the 1, and then we moved backwards through time. So we went from the 1 to the after 4, to the and after 4, to the E after 4, to the 4, to the after 3, the and after 3, and all of that. So that was good work. It helps to tap your foot. Yeah. Well, we were counting, tapping. But that was a whole bunch of fun, and we did some other stuff. Again, similarly simple, like he wanted us to play 3 notes, like, but move the placement of that. So we started with the 1, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the and after 1, which is 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4 to the 2, 1, 1. 2, 3, 4, and we move through that whole sequence again from the 1 to the 1 and to the 2 to the 2 and then into the E's and U's. Man, that stuff started to get really tricky. And he had a guy, one of the guys he'd done a masterclass workshop with, he picked him to come up and play those things. And that guy did really well, actually. I've got to say, his name was Mark, and he coped with almost everything Anthony Wellington threw at him. Me, I had the caveat of like, well, I don't play the bass. So that was great. Hopefully he comes back. So Turtletone, what have you got a brand name for your solid bodies? Is it just like a hobby thing, or are you kind of doing batches of 10? No, man. Hobby, kind of. Well, good for you, man. good for you. I can't be doing the building of them, but I certainly love the playing of them. I'm considering buying a kind of a 60s reissue Strat because it's got a nice chunky neck, like a proper chunky C neck. Did the chords split on that, JS? Yes, they do. You pull out that one, I think. It's just a push-pull. Chunky necks, they're stable and have a good tone. Well, yeah, but the reason I'm digging them is because something I completely misunderstood years ago, like when I was a kid, like when I wanted a guitar like this, because when I was 16, 17, like my hero was Joe Satriani, and the guitar I wanted was that silver guitar he's got on the front of Flying in a Blue Dream, with all his drawings and doodles and stuff all over it. I think they call it the Black Dog, and they did do some production of those, but they're like $20,000 or something amazing. Anyway, the thing I got wrong was the thin necks are the most comfortable and fastest to play. And because I was listening to people like Vai and Satriani and all the other shredders of the 80s, they had Kramers and they had Ibanez guitars, I naturally gravitated towards that. When I got my first Strat, which is this one here, this is a 96 Strat, and the neck is a little thicker than Ibanez, but not by much. And I'm thinking, because when you actually get your first Strat, it's like a holy grail moment, because there's so much mythology and legend in music about a Strat. You've got Hendrix, you've got Clapton, you've got Gilmour, some pretty big deal people. So when I got it, I loved the tone, but the neck, I was like, this is good, but I kind of thought it was going to be better. And it was only years later I kind of realized that actually the Strat necks, I kind of thought you went to the shop, you got a Strat, and if you went to another shop and got a different Strat, they would play exactly the same. But oh boy, was I wrong. But I'm a 16-year-old kid, all right? So I don't know really anything about guitars. I just know the Strat is the Strat. And so I got this, and it's lovely, but it's okay. But it didn't like blow me away. It didn't like, this isn't quite. But over the years, I got used to it. I play it all the time. It's my number one guitar. But about 6 months ago, a student of mine, he bought a custom shop 58 reissue, I think, and it had a chunky C or a chunky D, I can't remember. He let me borrow it for a bit, bless him. Thank you, Tim. And it was heavily relicked, but the neck was super chunky, and I kind of thought, I'm not going to get on with that. I kind of thought that chunky necks were difficult to play. That chunky necks were for people like Hendrix who had massive hands, and I don't have massive hands at all. And I thought chunky necks were just going to be slow and difficult to play and hurt your hand and create loss. But no, actually, for me, for my hands, I picked this up and it was like hand in glove. And I was like, holy crap. Like from when I was 16 to 6 months ago, which is at least 30 years, I thought chunky necks were to be avoided, but this thing fit my hand like a glove, and I was so amazed. It planted the seed of, I need to buy a new guitar with that kind of neck. I'm probably not going to buy a custom Strat reissue because that's like, I don't know, 10 grand. I don't know, too much money for me. but it was amazing. But yeah, this is I don't play this that often, funnily enough. But I've been doing some lessons that involve guitar, songs that use humbuckers. Kind of, I've been working on that 1970s classic rock, Volume 1 series of lessons. So I've got this out, and it's nice to play. But usually I'm playing my Strat. I went to a jam the other night. SRV, Bird's Fabulous. Yes, SRV was a big one for me too. It's interesting, my relationship with SRV, because I was friends with a bunch of guys in a blues band, and I was 16. They were around the same age. One of them in particular was 2 years younger. He was 14, but they had this blues band, and they were really good, like really good for 16, 17-year-olds. They had a great singer, and they had a great guitar player. And at the time I was into like Metallica and Megadeth, some heavy stuff. And I was like, yeah, blues, it's like 3 chords, it's boring. I went to see them play, and although they were awesome at it, I just didn't connect with it. As a 16-year-old, I was like, it's okay. Anyway, but this guitar player, he was awesome. He was 14 years old, and he was an incredible player. And I was kind of pissed because I was 2 years older than him, and I kind of thought I should have been better than him. But he was not shredding, but he had the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing down. He'd studied Stevie Ray Vaughan obviously intensively for a number of years, and he had all the licks. And he kept on going on at me about Stevie Ray Vaughan and how good he was, and how, and I was like, yeah, but can he beat Kirk Hammett in a duel? Those are the stupid things that you kind of put to each other when you were that age. You're like, oh yeah, but Kirk Hammett could like do this, or like whomever else I was into. And he kept on at me about Stevie Ray Vaughan and how important it was and how I should get into it. So when I got my first Strat, then when I heard that sound, the first thing I went to was Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I got that Texas Flat album, and I was like, actually, this kid is right. This kid was right. Now, I've never heard anyone attack the guitar with the ferocity that Stevie Ray Vaughan did. And I think eventually the thing that appealed to me was I was into like that rock guitar, Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani stuff. And it was like Stevie Ray was playing the blues, but he had the attack and ferocity of some of those rock players. So it built a bridge for me. And that's how I got into Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I'm so glad I did. And I kind of think that guy, this 14-year-old kid who you might know actually, turned out to be an awesome player, and he started to work in the magazine industry. And now he has his own YouTube channel with Dan, because it's Mick from that pedal show. And if you've seen Mick play, you'll know he's a great player. But I don't remember a time when Mick wasn't a great player, to be honest. And even when that blues band, it was just a blues covers band, they were really big where I lived, like sell-out shows all the time. And I was both inspired and cross, because like, whoa, why do they get on the audience coming to their gigs, but like nobody wants to come to our gigs? Well, nobody wanted to come to our gigs because we were just playing bad versions of Guns N' Roses and Van Halen songs. Whereas these guys were so polished, tight, and awesome. And they played songs that had a broader appeal, right? They were doing the Blues Brothers stuff. They were doing stuff from Otis Redding, and the movie The Commitments. Anyway, so Mick Taylor introduced me to Stevie Ray Vaughan and a lot of other things. And often we would borrow stuff off each other. The other guitar player in the band, Steve, was for some reason always blowing up amps. So when they were stuck, they used to call me and can I borrow your amp? And I actually bought a Marshall half stack from Mick, because he always used to play Fender stuff. I remember he played a Fender Twin, and then he got this Marshall half stack. And for me, just like the Strat was the holy grail, the Marshall was the holy grail. And I got it. It was like a JCM 800 100-watt head and 4x12 angle cabinet. And I thought, mate, I have arrived. Because, you know, back in the 80s, all that stadium rock, you just had a wall of Marshalls, didn't you? None of them were plugged in, but it just looked amazing. So, what was it up here? Something like that. Now, where's it going? No. Gotta wait for the muscle memory to kick in. Doesn't sound in tune to me. I should really put this on the Strat, shouldn't we? Okay, so I don't know if it's this microphone or this microphone that we're getting. Might be that one. So let's take this off. Plug this in. I was at a jam the other night, guys. I go to a local jam and we had a unique situation on our hands. The unique situation was we went to a jam and there was 6 drummers. 6 drummers at a jam. Nice. Anyone know what that is? Yes, sounds like a Strat. Love that. That's a great song. It's called 2 Fools a Minute by David Lee Roth. Man, if only I could play it. Cool. Bird's fabulous. Are you a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan? Let's name some guitar heroes. I haven't got that many, gotta say. I guess the biggest one for me is Jimmy. And I think Jimmy's like the top, and then everything else kind of filters down from that singular point in time and sound and music. There's like, it's like BC and AD. It's like before Jimmy and after Jimmy. He's the top, and everything that came after or even came before was colored by what he brought into the world. So I just wondered what great things he would have brought us. if he was still with us, you know, because the dude was funky as hell, as well as, you know, he could shred. You know, what's that? We listen to just playing on some of the lesser known tracks like Little Miss Strange, where Noel Redding's singing. That's off Electric Ladyland. He founded the school and no one has graduated yet. Man, that is a great quote. Did you make that up, Walt? Or is that something that somebody else has said? Because that nails it, bro. That totally nails it. Yeah, you know, Jimmy. I tell you, when I first heard him, because I'd heard Jimi Hendrix was an amazing guitar player, and you got to remember, when I was a kid, these are things you heard. Okay, this is not stuff you saw or read. This is before the internet, so it just kind of carries on down through the chain of guitar players, through friends of friends and people who own guitar players who own music shops and stuff like that. You're like, oh, Jimi Hendrix. Have you heard Jimi Hendrix, kid? You learning to play the guitar? Yeah, I'm learning to play the guitar. You should check out Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix. Man, that's a weird name. Jimi Hendrix. Oh, yeah, while you're at it, you should try out Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton. I'm thinking, these are people's names that are probably the least rock and roll names I've ever heard, when you've got like Kirk Hammett, James Hetfield, and you've got who else is up there? Nuno Betancourt, and you've got, you know, those all sound pretty rock and roll, but Eric Clapton, just the words in my mouth were like, you sure he's good? Jimi Hendrix? And I heard he was an amazing guitar player. I heard Jimmy was an amazing guitar player. They were like, oh yeah, man, you should, if you listen to anyone, you should listen to Jimmy. And I was expecting this amazing, incendiary, shreddy guitar player, because that's the expectation, because I'm living in a world of shred guitar players and 80s hair metal. And then I listened to Jimmy, and actually I think the first Jimmy song I heard was, you know, Wind Cries Mary. And I was like, this guy doesn't shred, you know. Oh. I mean, is there anything more beautiful? And I was like, he's not shredding, but something about the poetry of that song, the prose, the feel, the chordal melody stuff, it just told me everything I needed to know. And then I heard something else. Maybe I heard Foxy Lady or Purple Haze or something. And I was like, oh, so he can do the shred stuff too. Walt says, I had heard Hendrix and thought he was just another great electric bluesman like Johnny Winter. Then a friend pointed out things like his chewing gum on if 6 was 9 and realised there was a giant step above everyone. Yeah. I don't know what to say, apart from he's given us a lot, and we're still we're still learning from him. I mean, the fact that he's still relevant. You know, you get young kids like I was going, oh, why is Jimi Hendrix so great if I can play better than him? Jimi Hendrix couldn't play in time. Listen to his stuff. He's all over the place. Everyone's like going, well, I'd win if it was me versus Jimi Hendrix. I could play faster than him. You know, all about technique. Castles Made of Sound was your first clue. Yeah, that's another great song. I've never learned that one. Should put it on my list. That's about as good as I get with it. I put them clean. But yeah, just all of that. Just, you know, going from there to... I know Curtis Mayfield was doing it and that, but Jimmy really brought something special. And even in things like with reworkings of songs he loved, like, you know, All Along the Watchtower. It's just genius. You know, he just did his own thing. He just took Dylan's lyrics and Matthew Conley, hey, can you play some Hey Joe? Oh, I can. I can play a bit of Hey Joe. Let's get a little bit of see what I can do, Matthew. Oh, it's a long time since I've played. Now, we play Hey Joe. More than virtuosic, he was a genius musician with a beautiful imagination. And I think that's it. I think his imagination and his creativity and his relentless kind of exploration, running down through ideas, starting at one point and just not giving up on that idea until it was fully formed, I think was far more additional to what the other guys were doing. I mean, the other guys were being creative, but they were being creative kind of from a secondary source. Like Clapton had heard these other people and he was trying to emulate, but kind of Jimmy played with Ike and Tina Turner. He played with Little Richard. He played with the Isley Brothers. So he was kind of playing from the primary source and mixing all those things he learned on the road and all those R&B things. So, Matthew. So this is how we start Hey Joe. If you watch him on the Lulu show, I think, it kind of starts a bit like this. So it's a huge noise. It's like... Actually, I don't think it starts like that. I think that's what we do. And then we go... This is before we're even playing the song. Then we start the song. But that's a great song. I'll, you know. And then if you listen to his Winterland version, there's some great... Great kind of additional solo stuff. And then wax on the fuzz. That's why you could play rhythm guitar and Clapton couldn't. Yes. Yeah, well, Clapton's done all right. You know, he wasn't my favorite guitarist growing up, but being British and him being British, he was the most accessible guitar player, because if anyone was going to be on TV, it was Eric Clapton. You never saw, like, I never saw Stevie Ray Vaughan on TV. The only time I've ever seen Stevie Ray Vaughan is on YouTube, because, you know, or on a DVD, you never got that stuff broadcast in England. There's only 4 channels in England, 3 at the time. Cream was his finest hour, yeah. But I also like when he went back in the 90s, he did From the Cradle. I thought that was a good album. And obviously the classic stuff like I Shot the Sheriff, Wonderful Tonight, all that kind of stuff. But if you read his autobiography, man, I'm surprised he made it through, Clapton, because he was putting some substances in his body, you know, heroin, like bottles of vodka. I just don't believe that he managed it. So, outro solo to Hey Joe, I think it was. That was it. That kind of stuff. But you know, it's a simple song, so you can add lots of ornamentation to it. But when we play Jimmy stuff, I like to add in all of the kind of stuff that Jimmy played live. And if you know Jimmy never played the same stuff any time. So it's good to kind of take some of his live solos and add them on to the studio versions of the tracks. What was I going to say? Oh, so I was playing Fire the other day, and there's a bit that nobody ever pays attention to, and that's the bit after the solo. The bit between the first chorus and the second verse, there's like a fill that nobody does. Everyone's just like. It's that one. There's too much reverb on that by a mile. So I was going, yeah. Yeah, so what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so before he goes into the second verse, but nobody does that. Anyway, Matthew asks, how long did it take you to get used to playing the Hendrix thumb over chords? It seems to be my biggest challenge in playing the Hendrix style. Matthew, you are not alone. I'm not used to it. I'm still not used to it. And I haven't been doing it that long. I got involved with a Hendrix tribute show about 5 years ago, maybe it's 4.5. But at that time, I didn't play any thumb over stuff. Just played bar chords as I could play them, right? And it was maybe about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, that I I don't know, made a random decision. It was nothing really to do with getting, because, you know, people out there will give you shit for you're teaching a Hendrix song on YouTube, but you're not playing the way Jimmy did with the thumb over. And, you know, I kind of, on the one hand, see where people like that are coming from, but on the other hand, I'm not sure it matters that much, because some people can't play like that, and some people actually have a real difficulty, and I'm one of them, and you're obviously one of them too, Matthew. So if you close your eyes and listen to somebody on YouTube teach a Hendrix song, if it sounds like Hendrix, then I kind of feel like it doesn't matter what techniques we used to recreate that. You know, if you heard this dude on the radio, you'd think it was awesome. But I'm not going to get into an argument about whether, you know, playing down or there. I know, I've seen Jimmy play at the Isle of Wight, and he plays it up here, but pretty much the same. And he definitely did those kind of fills and things through the word for the verse on the record down this part of the fretboard. Live, he was more bar chordy. So Matthew, I'd say keep going with it. I started doing it about 2 years ago. I'm still not comfortable with it, but it's getting better, you know. It's not getting better today. But just keep practicing. You know, I did it. I kept doing it, and every time I thought, this is pants. This is just going to take ages. Don't even think I can do this. And eventually, very slowly, it starts to get better. But I haven't done any Hendrix shows for about 6 months now. So I'm kind of, again, losing the technique that I got to up to that point. But keep going, man. Because when we play Isabella, like that. Yeah, that's where it gets ratty. That's always a challenge for me. I think I started bringing in the thumb over stuff for Little Wing because it was slower and I could manage it. Turtle Tone, why don't you try a proper position instead of hold the neck like a caveman would grip it like a club? Yeah, I did. I did try that. You know, like most people when they're learning something, I go to Justin Guitar, right? And I was like, he's a dude, you know, he's a cool dude. Let's learn about thumb over. And he said exactly that, because, you know, he said, try to hold it. Actually, he said the opposite of what you're saying. Well, he said, try to hold it like a bat. Don't think of it like this is a finger, like you normally try. Think of it like a baseball bat, which kind of helped a little bit, I guess. But there's people telling you something and showing you something, and then there's the difference between that and you actually doing it. Okay, and you know, it was like, am I fretting with this part of my thumb? Am I fretting with this part of my thumb? This part, you know, you just kind of have to find. Yeah, Hendrix had huge hand. You know what? Should really put this here and grab this here. You know, because that was the reason I got this. I'm going to be finishing up soon. Moving to another one. We went from one song to another. Oh yeah, so okay, so this is my Hendrix Strats in E flat, because I pretty much when we did the live show, we did the whole show in E flat. I didn't used to. I used to do the standard. Well, we used to make it as authentic as possible. I used to do the studio tracks that were recorded in standard tuning on the standard tuning guitar, and the other tracks in E flat. But in the end, I just got a bit fed up with swapping guitar, and it's easier to sing all of the ones when you're tuning half a step down as well. But I think the heat is obviously affecting. It's always a G string. Oh yeah. Da, da, da. I love that song. That's Here He Comes, which Jimmy kind of started as Rock Me Baby, a bit slower, but then he made it into his own song. But still killer. It's just a 12 bar, but it's a killer, burning hot 12 bar. And the end is particularly nice. Let's put it on there, maybe like that. And then Jimmy's old. And all of that. So, thank you for joining me today for a bit of a noodle. It was kind of short notice, so I didn't really have a subject to talk about. Usually I will explore some kind of subject, some kind of technique, and teach a few things. But today I'm just so happy to get internet. I just wanted to come and say hi and have a few of you come and hang out with me. So I'm going to head off. I'm going to open a window in here because it's hot as hell. It's summer here, and I'm going to go to the beach. And so thank you, Walt. Thank you to Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Keep going with that thumb over stuff. It does eventually come, but I guess it's like the F bar chord. You know, remember that? Remember how much of a struggle and a journey that was, and you thought you'd never get it, and then it started coming right, and then eventually, it's one of those. The thumb over thing is definitely. So you keep going with that. Don't give up. It's something I have to work on all the time. Clearly, I haven't worked on it for a while, and it's not so good. So I don't think it's something that you ever nail. You're just like, apart from if you're Jimmy, you know, it's not something you go, okay, I've done that, now I'm cool. It's something that if you don't practice it, it kind of dips off again, and you always need to be practicing it to keep it consistent, you know. And obviously that's pretty much goes without saying for all techniques. You start to lose the proficiency and fluidity of your technique if you don't practice it every day. Okay, so Bird's fabulous. Walt, love to see some of your guitars, man. Point me in the direction of where I can see some of the ones you built. Paco, Gino, Chip. Thank you, guys. And might do another live stream next week. A lifetime thing. Yes, for sure. All right, people, if you want to drop in some comments about subjects you'd like covered on live streams, because, you know, I like to keep it nice and interactive. Like, hey, Phil, how do I do this? Or explain to me this concept. Or why can't I play an F bar chord? Or, you know, any of that stuff, pop it in the comments here. I'll have a read. Or if you're watching the replay of this live stream, then put it in the comments below in YouTube, and then I'll do a stream and try and demystify some of that stuff for you, because I think a lot of times playing is to do with joining the dots, because I have a lot of students who are like 40 to 50-year-old guys. They've been playing 5 to 10 years, some of them maybe more, and they've got all these pockets of knowledge, okay, but what they don't have is this understanding that this knowledge can be joined together in one big tube of knowledge. And so I'm kind of almost a facilitator of joining the dots. I'm not necessarily teaching them anything new, although there are occasions when we do come across new stuff. But most of the time I'm going, hey, you know this, and you know this. Well, what you didn't know is this thing that links the two together. And they're like, oh my God, I've known this for years, but I never put this and this together to make that. So that's me. Let me say goodbye properly. So thank you all for joining me. I will see you maybe next week around this time if I'm able to. Otherwise, please head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. I've got a new video coming out this week. Can't remember what I did it on. Okay. It's about putting rhythm first. But the most recent one I did was about, I think, 6 ways to play a dominant 7th arpeggio. So go and check those out if you're interested. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now, guys. See you later.